They laughed when Odelia Saye bent down to fix the broken wagon, and the cruelest laugh came from a man whose family had eaten through winter because of her. At 34 years old, Odelia had learned that people could accept your help with both hands and still use the same mouth to shame you when company came. She was a large woman, nearly 300 pounds, with a heavy, soft figure that filled out every plain dress she owned. Her face was round, her brown eyes often carried a sadness she tried to hide, and her thick black hair was usually pinned beneath a faded scarf because there was never enough time in the morning to make herself pretty. At least, that was what everyone told her. Pretty belonged to her younger sister. Grace belonged to other women. Odelia was useful. Odelia was dependable. Odelia could knead bread, balance accounts, mend harness leather, bargain with merchants, soothe a sick child, repair a wagon wheel, and somehow stretch $3 into a week of meals. But on that warm afternoon in the little valley town of Bellwether, none of that mattered. Not while a wealthy visitor stood beneath the cottonwood trees, and half the town was trying to impress him. "Careful there, Odelia," Jonas Pell called from the porch, loud enough for everyone to hear. "If you lean any harder on that wagon, we'll need 2 men to lift the axle after you're done." Laughter rolled across the yard. Odelia's hands stopped on the wheel, only for a second. Then she lowered her eyes and returned to the bent pin she was trying to straighten. Her fingers did not shake until she heard her sister laugh too. The gathering had been her mother's idea, or perhaps Maribel's. In the Say house, it was sometimes difficult to tell where one woman's wishes ended and the other's began. Odelia's younger sister, Maribel, was 26, slender, pale, and graceful in a way that caused people to forgive her almost anything. She wore a soft yellow dress that afternoon, with white ribbon at the waist, and her honey-colored hair arranged in loose curls. Men moved aside when Maribel entered a room. Women complimented her stitching, even when Odelia had finished half of it. Shopkeepers slipped an extra sweet into her paper sack. Children brought her wildflowers. Bellwether had decided years ago that Maribel was the lovely Say daughter, and Odelia was the unfortunate one. Odelia had never agreed to those roles, but that did not seem to matter. She had simply been pushed into hers little by little, until one day she realized everyone expected her to remain there forever. The wealthy visitor was a representative from Calder Vale Holdings, a company most people in Bellwether knew only by name. His name was Everett Crane, and he had arrived in a polished black carriage with silver fittings and 2 men in dark coats. He spoke softly, smiled carefully, and listened to everyone as though measuring them for a coffin he had not yet ordered. The townspeople did not see that. They saw clean cuffs, polished boots, and money. Crane had been invited to the Saye property because Odelia's father, Vernon, owed money on several parcels of land along the Valley Creek. He had borrowed during 2 bad harvest years, then borrowed again when his cattle sickened, and now half of Bellwether seemed to know his private business. The gathering was supposed to show Crane that the Say family remained respectable and worth trusting. Odelia had spent 2 days preparing food, washing linens, repairing a broken porch rail, and cleaning the house until the pine floor shone. Yet when the guests arrived, her mother quietly took the serving tray from her hands and said, "Maybe stay near the kitchen today, dear. Maribel can handle the guests." Odelia had looked at her mother for several seconds. "I made everything on that table. I know. I arranged the accounts Mr. Crane asked father to prepare. I know that too. Then why am I hiding?" Her mother's eyes flicked toward the parlor, where Maribel's laughter floated through the open window. "No one said hiding. You didn't have to." Her mother sighed in the tired way people often sighed at Odelia when she said something true. "Please don't make today difficult." So Odelia had stayed near the kitchen. She carried empty trays in and full trays out. She replaced the lemonade when it ran low. She found extra chairs when more guests came than expected. She fixed the pump handle when it loosened. When old Mrs. Danner nearly fainted from the heat, Odelia caught her before she fell and sat her beneath the shade with a wet cloth at her neck. No one noticed. But when Maribel brought the old woman a glass of cool water, someone said, "Such a caring girl." Odelia heard it. She always heard it. Late in the afternoon, Everett Crane asked Vernon Say about a wagon parked near the barn. "That yours?" Vernon frowned. "Used to be. Axle's gone bad." "It's the pin," Odelia said before she could stop herself. Several heads turned. Crane looked toward her. His eyes traveled over her faded brown dress, her wide hips, her flower-marked apron, and the scarf holding back her dark hair. "The pin. The locking pin on the left side is bent. The axle is still sound." Her father cleared his throat. "Odelia keeps busy with all sorts of things." There was something in the way he said it that made her contribution sound like a strange hobby. Crane smiled. "Does she?" Maribel stepped closer to him. "My sister has always enjoyed fixing things. It keeps her occupied." A few people chuckled. Odelia felt heat rise from her collar to her cheeks. Then Jonas Pell made his joke about the axle. Everyone laughed. Almost everyone. At the edge of the yard stood a tall, broad man in a weathered brown coat. He had arrived quietly not long after Crane. No one had announced him. No one had surrounded him with questions. He looked to be near 40, perhaps older, with a rough beard, a sun-darkened face, and deep-set grey eyes that seemed almost black beneath the brim of his hat. There was an old scar near his temple. His boots were muddy. His hands were large and marked by years of work. While the others laughed, he did not. Odelia noticed him because of that. She wished she had not. Pity was almost worse than mockery. She wiped her hands on her apron and stood. "The wagon will be ready before sunset." Jonas Pell lifted his cup. "Provided sunset waits for you." Another laugh. Something inside Odelia gave way. It was not dramatic. She did not shout. She did not throw the hammer. She simply walked around the barn where no one could see her, sat on an overturned bucket, and pressed both hands against her face. For years she had told herself the insults did not matter. She had treated each one like a small stone dropped into deep water. She told herself the stone disappeared. What she had never admitted was that stones did not disappear. They sank. They collected. Eventually they became a bottom. Her breathing came unevenly. She hated herself for crying. She hated that Jonas had managed it. She hated that her sister's laugh hurt most of all. "You're going to lose the light." Odelia lowered her hands. The weathered stranger stood several yards away. She quickly wiped her face. "Excuse me, the wagon." He nodded toward the barn corner. "You said you'd have it fixed by sunset." Odelia stared at him. He took off his hat. There was no amusement in his expression, no soft pity either. "I didn't mean to disturb you." "You did." He gave a small nod. Fair enough. She expected him to leave. Instead, he looked toward the wagon. "You're right about the pin." Odelia's eyes narrowed. "You checked." "I heard what you said. Then I looked." "You know wagons. I know broken things." Something about the answer made her look at him more carefully. "You're Ansel Rook," she said. He seemed mildly surprised. "People talk. They usually do." "You live up in Blackthorn Mountain." "I do. People say you barely come down. They say too much." Despite herself, Odelia almost smiled. He noticed. That made her uncomfortable. She stood and brushed dust from her skirt. "If you've come to tell me I shouldn't listen to people like Jonas Pell, save your breath. He's been an idiot since he was 12. I'm aware." Ansel's mouth moved slightly at one corner. "I wasn't going to say that." "Good. I was going to ask whether you can read a timber ledger." Odelia stared at him. "A what?" "Timber ledger. Supply costs. Payroll. Shipment records." "Yes." "Water claims?" Her expression changed. "I understand numbers, Mr. Rook." "I gathered that." "How?" "You corrected Everett Crane when he quoted the interest on your father's note." Odelia's stomach tightened. "You heard that." "Everyone heard it. Most didn't understand it." Odelia looked around the corner toward the party. Music had started. Someone had brought out a fiddle. "You're doing business with Crane?" Ansel's face hardened almost too quickly. "No." "Then why were you here?" "I came to see your father." "For what?" "That's between him and me." Then your timber ledgers can stay between you and your mountain. She turned away. Mrs. Say. She stopped. Miss. She corrected. Ansel paused. Miss Say. There was no judgment in his voice, but she still felt the need to explain, as though 34 years old and unmarried were another accusation. He did not ask. Instead, he said, "Something is wrong with my operation." Odelia slowly turned back. "What kind of wrong?" "The kind I can feel but can't prove. That is not very specific. I have 23 men cutting timber and 6 hauling. We sell pine south, oak east, and mill enough ourselves to supply 3 towns. For the last year, we've worked more and earned less. I've replaced 2 bookkeepers. Neither found anything. Maybe they were poor bookkeepers. Maybe. Or maybe you spend too much. I don't. That sounds like something every man in debt says." This time Ansel did smile. It changed his whole face, but only for a moment. Odelia found herself suddenly aware of the tear tracks still drying on her cheeks. She looked away. "What exactly are you asking? Come up the mountain. Look at the books. Look at the operation. Tell me what I'm missing." Odelia laughed once, because the request was so unexpected it seemed ridiculous. "You want me to leave my family and go inspect a logging business run by a man who barely speaks? You've described it fairly. I know nothing about logging. You know records. I know household accounts. You know more than that." The certainty in his voice unsettled her. He reached into his coat and handed her a folded page. Odelia opened it. It was a supply statement. She read the first lines, then the second, and her tears were forgotten. "This figure is wrong." Ansel said nothing. "The freight charge is being calculated twice." He still said nothing. "And this weight doesn't match the count." "No, you already knew? I found those 2. Then why show me? To see if you would." Odelia looked up sharply. "You tested me." "Yes." "That was rude." "Yes." She wanted to dislike him. It would have been easier. Instead, she looked down at the paper again. Near the bottom was a charge for 400 pounds of iron fittings. "Did you receive this?" "Half." "Then why did you pay for all of it?" "My bookkeeper said the rest came later." "Did it?" "No." She folded the page. "Who signs your deliveries?" "Foreman named Cole Veron." "Who approves payment?" "Me." "Without checking?" Ansel's jaw tightened. Odelia handed the paper back. "Then part of your problem is standing right here." He blinked. "You." For the first time, she saw genuine surprise. "You trust people because you don't want to deal with them. That makes you easy to steal from." Ansel studied her for several silent seconds. Then he put the page into his coat. "How soon can you come?" Odelia almost laughed again. Behind the barn, the fiddle played faster. People clapped. Maribel's voice rose above the crowd. Odelia looked toward the house she had kept standing year after year. Her father's land needed her. Her mother depended on her. Every meal, every bill, every repair seemed to pass through her hands. Leaving felt impossible. Then, Jonas Pell's laughter drifted around the corner. Odelia looked at Ansel. 3 days. Ansel nodded once. "I'll bring a wagon Friday morning." "Don't." "Why? I can get myself there." His grey eyes rested on hers. "All right." He put his hat back on. As he walked away, Odelia called after him. "Mr. Rook!" He turned. "Why me?" Ansel looked toward the crowded yard, then back at her. "Because everyone else here seems determined not to see you." For a moment, Odelia forgot how to breathe. Then he walked away. Friday morning arrived beneath a sky the color of old silver. Odelia packed 1 trunk, a ledger case, 2 dresses, a heavy coat, and the same faded scarf she had worn for years. Her mother stood in the kitchen with both hands wrapped around a coffee cup. "You're truly going?" "For a few weeks. Your father has accounts due. I arranged them. The north fence still needs work. I asked Eli Mercer to repair it. He owes us for the feed I gave him last February." Her mother frowned. "Maribel doesn't know how to handle the poultry books. She can learn." From the doorway, Maribel said, "I never asked you to do those books." Odelia turned. Her sister wore a blue morning dress and looked as though she had slept perfectly. "No," Odelia said. You never asked me to do much of anything. Maribel's face tightened. Are you still angry about the party? I'm tired. Of what? Odelia lifted her trunk. Of being needed only when no one is watching. Her mother looked hurt. Odelia immediately felt guilty. That was another habit she had learned. Someone wounded her. She spoke about it. Then she felt guilty for making them uncomfortable. Her father entered from the hall. Vernon Say had once been a strong man. Odelia remembered him lifting sacks of grain onto his shoulders when she was a child. Now his back bent slightly, and grey had taken over his beard. Debt had aged him faster than weather. You sure about this? He asked. No. Then maybe don't go. Odelia looked at him. Do you want me to stay? Vernon opened his mouth. No answer came. That silence answered enough. He finally said, Rook is a strange man. I've survived strange men before. Her father almost smiled. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a small brass key. What is this? Your grandmother's cash box. Found it in the attic. Odelia turned the key between her fingers. You used to hide your drawings in there when you were a girl. I remember. You drew houses. I drew places where doors locked. Vernon's expression changed. Odelia regretted saying it. She kissed his cheek. I'll write. He held her hand, a moment longer than expected. Come home if you need to. The words struck her strangely. No one had ever said that to her before. They always said, come home because we need you. She carried the words with her up the mountain. Blackthorn rose above the valley, in long ridges covered with pine, dark even under sunlight. The road climbed slowly through narrow passes and beside cold streams that ran clear over stone. Odelia drove a small wagon pulled by her father's old mare, Penny. By noon, Bellwether had disappeared behind the trees. By afternoon, the air smelled of cedar, wet earth, and distant snow. She had expected Ansel's homestead to be a rough cabin surrounded by stumps. Instead, she found a working settlement. There was a sawmill beside the river, 3 long bunkhouses, a stable, a blacksmith shed, storage barns, and a large stone and timber house built against the slope. Smoke curled from several chimneys. Men moved logs with horses. Saws rang through the trees. Somewhere, water powered a heavy wheel that turned with a slow wooden groan. Odelia stopped the wagon. What have I gotten myself into? She whispered. A man near the stable looked at her, then called to another. Within moments, several workers were staring. Odelia knew those looks. Some were curious, some amused, some doubtful. One man laughed quietly. She climbed down without assistance. Where's Rook? A red-haired worker leaned against a post. You lost, ma'am. No. Kitchen's around back. I didn't ask for the kitchen. The man grinned. What are you looking for? Mr. Rook. And who should I say is asking? Odelia Saye. The grin faded slightly. Another man whistled. So you're the bookwoman. I'm the woman who asked where Mr. Rook is. That earned a few smiles. Then Ansel walked from the mill. He wore a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Sawdust covered one shoulder. You came. I said I would. His gaze moved to her trunk. Want help? Odelia almost said no automatically. Then she stopped herself. Yes. He lifted the trunk. It took both hands. Odelia felt a small, childish satisfaction. Not everything about her life had to be carried alone. Ansel led her toward the stone house. As they passed the red-haired worker, Ansel stopped. Cal. Yes? Miss Say will be reviewing everything. Cal glanced at Odelia. Everything? Everything. Payroll too? Especially payroll. The man stood straighter. Odelia noticed. So did Ansel. Neither spoke until they entered the house. The office occupied a room at the back with tall shelves, 2 desks, several filing cabinets, and a wall map showing the entire mountain operation. Odelia stood in the doorway. This is not a bookkeeping problem. Ansel set down her trunk. What is it? A disaster. He almost smiled. Papers lay in uneven piles. Receipts were stuffed into boxes. Shipment notices were pinned beneath unrelated invoices. 3 ledgers sat open to different months. You said you had bookkeepers. I did. Did you frighten them away? One left for Oregon. And the other? Married Cal. Odelia looked toward the window. The red-haired one? Yes. That may have been a bookkeeping error. Ansel laughed. It was the first time she heard the sound fully. Warm, unexpected, gone quickly. I'll need quiet, Odelia said. You'll have it. I'll need access to storage records. Yes. Payroll. Yes. Contracts. Yes. Land papers. Ansel hesitated, only for a heartbeat. Odelia noticed. Those two, he said. Good. She sat down at the desk. Ansel remained in the doorway. What? He shook his head. Nothing. You're staring. I'm waiting for you to tell me I've ruined everything. Odelia opened the first ledger. You probably have. Then she began. For the first 3 days, she barely saw the mountain. She saw columns, numbers, dates, names, receipts, errors. Some mistakes were ordinary. A worker had been paid twice. A freight bill had been entered under the wrong month. A customer in Casper still owed for lumber delivered in spring. Others troubled her. Certain supply purchases repeated every 6 weeks, but had no matching delivery record. Timber shipments disappeared between the mill and the rail station. The missing amounts were small enough to escape notice, but large enough to matter. Someone had been taking pieces. Not enough to sound an alarm, enough to bleed the operation slowly. On the 4th afternoon, a worker named Hiram brought in a stack of hauling records. He was older than the others, with a bent nose and a missing finger. You're still here, he said. Odelia looked up. Were you expecting me to disappear? Most people don't last long around Rook. Why? Hiram shrugged. He likes silence. So do I. You? Yes? Wouldn't have guessed. Odelia set down her pencil. Why? The man shifted. Odelia waited. He finally said, You ask a lot of questions. That's not the same as talking. Hiram gave a reluctant smile. Fair enough. He put the records down. Anything else? Yes. Who loaded shipment 47? He frowned. Last October? Yes. Cole's crew. Who checked the count? Cole. Who delivered it? Cole. Who signed receipt at the rail yard? Hiram stared at her. Cole. Odelia leaned back. And Mr. Rook never found that strange. Hiram scratched his beard. Mr. Rook doesn't exactly love paperwork. I've noticed. After his wife died, he stopped caring about most things that didn't have to be cut, built, fed, or buried. The room grew still. Odelia looked toward the door. She died here? 7 winters ago. What happened? Hiram's face closed. Ask him. Odelia did not. That evening she ate with the workers in the long dining hall. At first, conversation died when she entered. By the 2nd week, it continued. By the 3rd, men began bringing her questions. One wanted help calculating what he could send his mother each month. Another asked her to read a contract before signing it. Cal, the red-haired man who had assumed she belonged in the kitchen, brought her a letter from his wife's brother concerning a farm sale. You understand this legal language? Some. What does it say? That your brother-in-law is about to sell 8 acres for the price of 6. Cal blinked. He is? Yes. How? The buyer measured from the creek instead of the property marker. Cal stared at the page, then at her. I owe you an apology. For what? The day you came. I've heard worse. That doesn't make mine better. Odelia met his eyes. The apology was clumsy, but it was real. Accepted. That night she sat alone on the porch, watching the mountain darken beneath a sky full of stars. Ansel came outside carrying 2 cups. He handed her one. Coffee? She smelled it. Barely. He sat on the step. Odelia took a cautious sip. It tastes like boiled fence wood. I made it. I know. How? No woman would admit to this. Ansel looked into his cup. I thought it was decent. You thought wrong. For several seconds they sat quietly. Then Ansel said, They respect you. The men? Yes. They respect useful information. They respect you. Odelia looked toward the dark trees. People respect usefulness until they don't need it. Ansel turned his cup slowly between his hands. Someone hurt you. Odelia gave a soft laugh without humor. You'll need to narrow that down. He looked at her. She regretted the bitterness immediately. I'm sorry. Don't be. Silence returned. The mountain wind moved through the pines like distant water. Ansel said, "My wife's name was Clara." Odelia did not move. She got sick one winter. Snow closed the road. I tried to carry her down myself. His voice remained calm, but Odelia heard the strain beneath it. How far? 7 miles. Odelia looked at him. Ansel. I made 4. He stared into the darkness. She died before morning. Odelia's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Everyone said the same thing. She looked down. He continued. Afterward, people came around, brought food, tried to talk. I hated them for being alive. His jaw tightened. So I came up here and made this place bigger. More work, more men, more noise from the mill. Yet you live alone. Yes. Why tell me? Ansel looked toward her. Because you said people respect usefulness until they don't need it. Odelia waited. He said, I think you know what loneliness feels like, even when people are around. Her eyes burned. She stood too quickly. I should get back to the records. Odelia. She stopped. It was the first time he had used her first name. Not Miss Say. Not bookwoman. Odelia. She looked at him. Ansel said softly, You don't have to earn your chair every time you sit down. The words struck somewhere deep. Odelia looked away. You make terrible coffee. I know. She went inside before he could see her cry. 2 days later, she found the first missing page. Ledger 4 jumped from page 86 to 89. At first, she assumed pages had torn accidentally. Then she inspected the binding. Cut. Cleanly. Pages 87 and 88 had been removed with a knife. Odelia checked another ledger. 3 pages missing. Then another. 2. She opened the storage cabinet. The bottom drawer was locked. Ansel. He appeared at the office door. What? Key. To what? She pointed. His expression changed. I don't have one. You own the building. I know. Who does? Cole. Odelia stared at him. You trust that man with an alarming number of keys. Ansel went still. 10 minutes later, Cole stood in the office. His face had gone pale. I lost it months ago. The key? Odelia asked. Yes. When? I don't remember. How convenient. Ansel watched from the wall. Cole looked at him. Boss, I swear, I didn't accuse you. Cole swallowed. Odelia noticed sweat near his temples despite the cold room. Get me a pry bar, Ansel said. They opened the drawer. Inside were old land records, several contracts, and letters tied with twine. Odelia began sorting. Near the bottom she found 3 deeds. The first covered Ansel's house. The second covered the mill. The third covered 800 acres along Blackthorn Creek. Odelia compared the signatures. Ansel. He stepped closer. What? Did you sign this? He examined the deed. Yes. Here? He looked. His face changed. No. The document transferred limited water access from Blackthorn Creek to a company called Meridian Valley Development. Odelia had never heard of it. Who are they? No idea. The paper claimed Ansel had signed 12 months earlier. He had not. Someone had forged his name. Odelia searched deeper. She found a threatening letter. No signature. Only one sentence. Sell before winter, or winter will sell for you. Ansel read it twice. Have you seen this? No. Then someone kept it from you. Odelia turned toward Cole. He was gone. The stable boy said he had ridden down the mountain less than 5 minutes earlier. Ansel reached for his coat. Where are you going? After him. No. He stared at her. He has a horse. So do I. And what happens when you catch him? Ansel said nothing. That is exactly why you're staying. He stole from me. We don't know that. He hid documents. We don't know that either. He ran. Yes. Odelia held up the forged deed. So let him run. Frightened men make mistakes. Angry men make worse ones. Ansel looked toward the road. What do you suggest? We learn who Meridian Valley Development is. Odelia's eyes fell on the water right transfer. And why they care about your creek? The answer came sooner than either expected. The next morning, a rider arrived from Bellwether. It was Eli Mercer. The neighbor Odelia had asked to repair her father's fence. His hat was crushed in his hands. "Miss Odelia," she stood. "What happened?" "Your father." The mountain seemed to disappear around her. "What about him?" "He collapsed yesterday." Odelia's face drained. "Is he alive?" "Yes. Doctor says his heart's weak. Your mother sent me." Ansel was already ordering a wagon. Odelia packed nothing. They left within the hour. The ride down felt endless. Odelia sat beside Ansel beneath a grey sky, clutching the brass key her father had given her. "What if he dies before we arrive?" "He won't. You don't know that." "No." "Then don't say it." Ansel looked at her. "You're right." Odelia pressed her lips together. A mile passed. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry. You're scared." "I'm always scared lately." Ansel kept his eyes on the road. "So am I." She looked at him. "Of what?" He took a long time to answer. "Getting there too late again." Odelia said nothing after that. When they reached Bellwether, she was out of the wagon before it stopped. Her father lay in the downstairs bedroom. He looked smaller. That frightened her more than anything. Vernon opened his eyes. "Odie." No one had called her that since she was 10. She sat beside him. "What happened?" "Just got dizzy." Her mother stood near the window. "The doctor says exhaustion." Vernon smiled weakly. "Doctor says lots of things." Odelia took his hand. "Why didn't you tell me you were worse?" "Had enough trouble." "I'm your daughter." "I know." "Then why do you always act like protecting me means lying to me?" Her father closed his eyes. Her anger broke. "I'm sorry." "No." He opened them again. "You're right." Her mother shifted uncomfortably. Odelia looked toward her. "What happened before he collapsed?" Her mother said, "A man came." "What man?" "From Calder Vale." Odelia's stomach tightened. "Everett Crane?" "No, another one." "What did he want?" Her father answered, "The creek." Odelia slowly turned toward him. "What?" "They say they own the note on the lower fields, and if I can't make payment, they take the creek easement." The room became very still. "Water rights." Vernon nodded. Odelia thought of Blackthorn Creek, Meridian Valley Development, the forged deed. She stood. "Where are the papers?" Her mother hesitated. "Odelia." "Where?" "In the study." She went there immediately. Ansel followed. The Saye study was smaller than his office, but equally disorganized. Odelia opened her father's debt folder. At first, nothing looked strange. Then she found an assignment notice. The lender had transferred Vernon's debt to Calder Vale Holdings. Attached was a proposed agreement granting water access in exchange for extending the loan. Odelia read the property description. Her pulse quickened. "Ansel." He stepped closer. She pointed. "They're not buying farms." "What?" "They're buying water." She pulled an old county map from the cabinet. Bellwether Valley was narrow. A creek ran from Blackthorn Mountain through the Say property and south across 6 other farms. Odelia traced the line. "If someone controlled the headwater on your land and the easements down here, they'd control the valley." "Yes." Ansel's face darkened. Odelia looked at the company name on the mountain deed. "Meridian Valley Development may be Calder Vale." A voice came from the doorway. "It is." Odelia turned. Maribel stood there. Her face was white. Odelia stared at her. "How do you know?" Maribel did not answer. "Maribel." Her sister looked at Ansel. "This is family business." Ansel said, "I'll wait outside." "No," Odelia said. Maribel's eyes flashed. "Odelia!" "He stays." Ansel remained. Maribel hugged her arms around herself. A letter came. "When?" 3 weeks ago. Odelia's heart sank. "Before I left?" "Yes." "From whom?" "Mr. Crane." "What did it say?" Maribel looked toward the floor. "Maribel." "He said father's debt could be forgiven." Odelia waited. "If." Maribel swallowed. "If we convince the neighbors to sign water access agreements." Odelia felt cold. "Where is the letter?" "I burned it." For several seconds no one spoke. Odelia heard the clock in the hallway. Tick, tick, tick. "You burned evidence." I was afraid. Of what? Maribel's voice broke. Everyone knowing. Odelia stared at her. Knowing what? That we were in debt. That father might lose the property. That Crane had been visiting me. Odelia blinked. Visiting you? Maribel's cheeks flushed. He was kind. Ansel looked away. Odelia understood. Oh, Maribel. Don't. You thought he was courting you. He said he cared about me. And, when he asked you to help take the valley's water, he said it was just business. Odelia stepped closer. You hid a letter that could have helped father because you were worried people would think badly of you. You don't understand. Odelia stopped. Maribel's voice rose. You don't understand what it's like. Something inside Odelia cracked. I don't understand. Maribel flinched. You think because people smile at me that my life is easy. Every day they expect me to be perfect, pretty, pleasant, quiet. If people knew Everett had used me, they would laugh. Odelia's eyes filled. And you think I don't know what laughter feels like? Maribel's mouth closed. I have been laughed at since I was 14. Odelia, I have walked into stores and heard people whisper before I reached the counter. I have watched men make jokes about whether a chair would hold me. I have fed neighbors who later called me a cow behind the church. I have done your sewing, your accounts, your chores, and watched people compliment you for the work. Maribel began crying. Odelia's own tears fell now. And when they insulted me at that party, you laughed. I was nervous. You laughed. I'm sorry. You always say sorry after. Maribel covered her mouth. Odelia turned away. She could not breathe in the room anymore. She walked through the hall, out the back door, across the yard, and kept going until she reached the old wagon shed. Then her legs failed. She sat against the wall. For the first time in years, she did not try to control the crying. It came from somewhere far deeper than the party, far deeper than Maribel. She cried for the girl who had learned early that making herself useful was safer than asking to be loved. She cried for every plate she had served before sitting down herself. Every joke she had pretended not to hear, every time she had hidden in photographs, every dress she had avoided because someone might say she was trying too hard, every kindness people accepted while treating her like an embarrassment. Footsteps approached. Ansel stopped a few feet away. Odelia wiped her face. Please go. He stayed. I mean it. I know. Then go. No. She looked up angrily. I don't want you seeing me like this. Ansel's expression changed. Why? Because I look pathetic. No. I'm sitting in dirt crying. So go away. The words echoed through the shed. Ansel did not move. Odelia covered her face. Her voice became small. Please. He sat beside her, not touching, just there. For a while she cried quietly. Then she whispered, Every insult taught me to disappear. Ansel looked at her. She stared at the dirt. I started choosing dark dresses because people noticed me less. I stopped dancing because I heard two boys laughing once. I stopped going to church picnics because I was tired of pretending I didn't see people watching what I put on my plate. I learned to stand near walls. I learned to make jokes about myself before anyone else could. Her breath shook. And the worst part is, they still needed me. They still came when they were hungry or broke or sick. They would come to my door and say, Odelia, please help. And I did. Every time. Ansel's eyes darkened. Why? Because I thought one day they would see me. She looked at him. They never did. Ansel reached for her hand. He moved slowly enough that she could pull away. She did not. His hand closed around hers. I see you. Odelia began crying harder. She hated how badly she needed those words. Ansel shifted closer. She leaned into him. His arms came around her. There was no hesitation in the way he held her. No awkwardness about her size. No careful distance. He simply held her, while years of loneliness came apart. After a long time, Odelia whispered, I'm embarrassed. Why? I've soaked your shirt. I own another. She laughed through her tears. Ansel rested his cheek against her hair. I hid too. Odelia pulled back slightly. After Clara, he nodded. For years I told myself the mountain was where I belonged. Was it? No. He looked toward the open doorway. It was where no one could ask me to care again. Odelia studied his weathered face. You loved her very much. Yes. Do you still? Ansel did not look away. Yes. Odelia's heart tightened. Then he said, loving someone who died doesn't mean the rest of you has to die with them. Took me a long time to understand that. Odelia swallowed. And now I'm sitting in a wagon shed with a woman who insulted my coffee. She smiled faintly. A serious offense. The worst. He brushed one tear from her cheek with his thumb. Odelia's breath caught. Neither moved closer. Neither needed to. The moment itself was enough. By evening, she had stopped crying. By morning, she was angry. Anger, Odelia discovered, could be useful when it was given a job. She spread every document across the CA dining table. Ansel stood beside her. Vernon sat wrapped in a blanket. Maribel and her mother sat across from them. Calder Vale doesn't want one farm, Odelia said. They want the creek from Blackthorn Mountain all the way through the valley. Her father frowned. Why? Because the railroad survey. Vernon stared. What survey? Ansel looked at her. Odelia pulled a newspaper clipping from her father's files. A new line is being considered through the southern pass. If it comes, Bellwether will grow. Mines could open. Stockyards. Hotels. Mills. Water will be worth more than land, her mother whispered. Dear Lord, Calder Vale knows it. They've been buying debt from struggling families. Then they offer extensions in exchange for water rights. On the mountain, they forged Ansel's name. Vernon looked at him. They forged yours. Ansel nodded. Odelia pointed to the map. If they control his headwater and enough access below, they can dictate who gets water and at what price. Vernon's face tightened. So what do we do? Odelia looked at the documents. We prove it. For the next week, she went door to door. That hurt more than she expected. At the Danner farm, the woman whose collapse Odelia had prevented at the party would barely meet her eyes. Did Calder Vale offer you an agreement? Mrs. Danner twisted her apron. No. Odelia waited. Mrs. Danner. The woman began crying. Yes. Did you sign? Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone? They said if we talked, they would call the loan. You knew they were pressuring my father too. I suspected. And you said nothing. Mrs. Danner covered her face. We have 4 children. Odelia's anger softened. Fear had built this conspiracy as much as greed. At the Mercer property, Eli admitted signing. At the Pell farm, Jonas denied everything until Odelia placed a copy of his agreement on the table. His face reddened. Where'd you get that? County office. You had no right. It's public record. Jonas looked toward Ansel, who stood near the door. You brought a mountain brute to scare me. Odelia said, he hasn't spoken. He doesn't have to. Ansel folded his arms. Jonas swallowed. Odelia leaned forward. Did Calder Vale tell you not to speak? Jonas looked away. Did they? Yes. And at the party, while my family was being pushed toward losing everything, you stood in our yard and mocked me. Jonas's face changed. Odelia, that joke was a joke. She nodded slowly. I know. Her voice stayed calm. That is what people always say after cruelty. It was only a joke. It was only a word. It was only laughter. Jonas said nothing. Odelia stood. I spent 6 nights at your house when your wife had fever. His eyes dropped. I brought food for your children. I know. I fixed your account with the seed merchant when he overcharged you. I know. And you still thought humiliating me was harmless. Jonas whispered, I'm sorry. Odelia looked at him. This time the apology did not heal anything. But she did not need it to. Then tell the truth when the time comes. What time? Odelia picked up her papers. You'll know. The final piece arrived from an unexpected source. Cal. He rode into Bellwether near midnight. Mud covered his coat. Ansel nearly struck him before Odelia stepped between them. Wait. Cal raised both hands. I didn't steal from you. Then why run? Ansel demanded. Because I was scared. Of what? Cal looked at Odelia. Cole Veron isn't my full name. Ansel went still. Cal swallowed. Calder Veron. Everett Crane is my mother's cousin. Odelia stared. You work for Calder Vale. I did. Ansel's face became hard. Cal hurried on. They sent me up there 2 years ago. Told me to learn the operation. Copy records. Move shipments. Help make the place weak. You stole from my men. Yes. The word hung heavily. Ansel stepped forward. Odelia put out one hand. Continue. Cal looked sick. I thought it was just business. Then I married Ruth, started living with people I was supposed to hurt. Hiram helped me when I broke my leg. You paid me through it. He looked at Ansel. And Miss Say. His eyes moved to Odelia. You helped Ruth's brother. Odelia said nothing. I tried to stop. That's why the records got messy. I started hiding things from Crane instead of Rook. The locked drawer had documents I was collecting. Why run? Crane sent word. Said if I didn't finish, he'd tell Ruth what I'd done. Ansel's voice was cold. So you ran from your wife? Cal's eyes filled. Yes. Coward. Yes. The simple answer stopped Ansel. Cal reached into his coat. I brought this. He handed Odelia a packet. Inside were letters. Dozens. Instructions from Calder Vale. Names of families. Debt amounts. Water claims. Payments to County Clerk Samuel Tress. A letter discussing the forged Blackthorn deed. Odelia read it twice. This is enough. Cal looked at her. For what? To end it. Ansel said. We take it to the sheriff. Odelia shook her head. Sheriff Nolan's brother owes Calder Vale. Ansel's jaw tightened. Then the state. They can bury it long enough to seize the land. What do you suggest? Odelia looked toward the window. Church bells would ring Sunday morning. Half the valley would gather in one place. She slowly folded the letter. We stop letting them do this in private. Sunday came bright and cold. By 10 in the morning, nearly every family in Bellwether stood inside the old meeting hall beside the church. Everett Crane arrived believing the gathering concerned the Say debt. He wore a dark green coat and polished boots. 2 company attorneys came with him. So did the county clerk. They did not know Cal was waiting in the back room. They did not know Ansel had sent copies of every letter to a state land commissioner 3 days earlier. They did not know Odelia had spent the night arranging evidence in order. They only saw a crowded hall. And Odelia. She stood at the front. For once, she did not wear brown. Her dress was deep blue. Her black hair was pinned neatly behind her head, without the faded scarf. Her hands trembled. She let them. Ansel stood near the wall, not beside her. He had offered. She had told him no. This part was hers. Everett Crane smiled. Miss Say. I understand your family wishes to discuss repayment. Odelia looked across the room. She saw Jonas Pell, Mrs. Danner, Eli Mercer, her mother, her father, pale but standing. Maribel sat beside him. Odelia looked back at Crane. No. His smile weakened. We're here to discuss theft. A murmur moved through the room. Crane's face remained calm. Be careful. I have been careful my entire life. Odelia placed the first document on the table. This is the original loan against the Say South Field. Then another. This is the transfer to Calder Vale. Another. This is the water agreement offered 2 weeks later. Crane folded his hands. All legal. Yes. Odelia placed another paper down. This is Eli Mercer's agreement. Eli stood. I signed because they threatened to take my barn. Another paper. The Danner agreement. Mrs. Danner rose. They told us we would lose our home if we spoke. Crane's jaw tightened. Odelia continued. One family after another stood. Some ashamed, some frightened, some angry. Then Odelia placed the forged mountain deed on the table. Crane's expression finally changed. This deed claims Ansel Rook sold water access to Meridian Valley Development. She looked at the crowd. Meridian Valley is controlled by Calder Vale Holdings. The room erupted. Crane raised his voice. This woman is making claims she does not understand. There it was. Not Miss Say, not Odelia. This woman. The same dismissal. The same small effort to make her less. Odelia felt it strike the old wound. But she did not shrink. I understand it very well. She lifted one of Cal's letters. This was written by Everett Crane to an employee placed inside Mr. Rook's operation. Crane went pale. Odelia read the relevant lines aloud in her own words. Instructions to weaken shipments. Hide documents. Create losses. Pressure Ansel into selling. Crane stepped forward. Those letters are stolen. A voice came from the back. No. Cal entered. His wife Ruth stood behind him. Her face was wet with tears. Cal walked to the front. I kept them. Crane stared at him. You fool. Yes, Cal said. For a long time. The room fell silent. Cal faced everyone. I helped them. Ruth began crying harder. Cal did not look away. I changed shipment records. I moved invoices. I lied to Mr. Rook. I was told the people in this valley were weak and desperate, and would sign anything if you scared them enough. His voice shook. I believed it, because believing it paid me. Ansel watched him. Cal continued. I was wrong. Odelia looked around the hall. This is how they nearly took the valley. She spoke softly now. Not with guns. Not with some great battle. With shame. With silence. With debt people were too embarrassed to talk about. With fear. She looked at Maribel. With secrets. Her sister began to cry. Odelia turned toward Crane. You counted on everyone being too ashamed to admit what was happening. Crane's face hardened. You think a public scene changes contracts? No. Odelia reached for the final envelope. But this might. She opened it. This morning I received a reply from the State Land Office. They have suspended all disputed water transfers connected to Calder Vale pending investigation. Crane stared. The county clerk suddenly moved toward the door. Ansel blocked his path. Odelia said, You may want to stay, Mr. Tress. Your name appears in several letters. The clerk sat down. Crane looked around the room. The people who had once smiled at his carriage now looked at him with disgust. His voice became quieter. You have no idea who you are challenging. Odelia smiled faintly. You have no idea how tired I am. Crane said nothing. You thought everyone here could be separated by fear. She looked toward the farmers. He was almost right. The words hurt them. They were meant to. Some of you knew my father was being pressured. Jonas lowered his head. Some of you knew families were signing away water. Mrs. Danner cried silently. Some of you kept quiet because you were afraid. Odelia breathed slowly. I understand fear. Her voice softened. I understand it better than I wish I did. She looked toward her sister. But fear does not erase what our silence does to other people. Maribel stood. Every eye turned toward her. Her voice shook. I hid a letter. Odelia's throat tightened. Maribel continued. Mr. Crane sent it to me. He made me believe he cared about me. I was ashamed when I realized he had used me, so I destroyed it. She looked at Odelia. And I let my sister carry the consequences. Tears ran down her face. I have done that more than once. Odelia remained still. Maribel faced the town. When people laughed at her, I laughed because I wanted them to keep liking me. A terrible quiet filled the room. Maribel's voice broke. She did half the work people praised me for. Their mother covered her mouth. She kept our family alive. Odelia closed her eyes. Years earlier, she might have dreamed of hearing those words. Now they did not feel victorious. They felt sad, because truth could arrive and still be late. Maribel looked at her. I am sorry. Odelia nodded once. She could not say more. The meeting ended without cheers. That surprised everyone. There was no grand celebration. No one carried Odelia through the streets. No one suddenly became better. The state investigation began. Calder Vale's local contracts were frozen. The county clerk resigned within the month. Everett Crane left Bellwether before winter and spent the following year answering questions from lawyers and state officials. Several families had their agreements cancelled. Others were forced to renegotiate. Cal admitted his role and cooperated fully. Ansel did not forgive him quickly. Ruth did not either. But Cal stayed. He worked. He accepted every cold look. Sometimes consequences were not a dramatic punishment. Sometimes they were simply living in the presence of people who now knew exactly what you had done. Spring came slowly to Bellwether. Odelia's father recovered enough to walk the property again. One afternoon she found him near the creek. He leaned on a cane. "You saved this place," he said. Odelia stood beside him. "We all did." He shook his head. "No." She looked at him. Vernon watched the water. "You did." For a long moment he was silent. "I should have told you that years ago." Odelia's chest tightened. "I let you become the strong one because it was convenient." He looked ashamed. "When your mother was tired, we called Odelia. When money was short, Odelia would figure it out. When Maribel needed something, Odelia knew how." He swallowed. "I was proud of you." Odelia's eyes filled. But I didn't say it." "No, I thought you knew." She looked toward him. "People always think the strong person knows." Vernon lowered his head. "I'm sorry." Odelia reached for his hand. She loved him. That had never been the problem. Love and hurt could live in the same house. She had learned that, too. A week later, Ansel arrived with 2 horses. Odelia stood on the porch. "You brought a second horse?" "Yes." "I'm not riding that mountain trail." "Then I brought 1 horse too many." She looked at him. He smiled. Over the past months, something in his face had softened. He still looked weathered, still carried grief in his eyes, but grief no longer seemed to own every room inside him. "Why are you here?" she asked. Ansel removed his hat. "I need a manager." Odelia folded her arms. "Do you?" "Yes." "Is this manager expected to fix your ledgers?" "Yes." "Your contracts?" "Yes." "Your terrible coffee?" He hesitated. "That may be beyond human ability." Odelia smiled. Then his expression became serious. "I don't want to ask you to come because I think you need saving." Her smile disappeared. "I know. I don't want to ask you because I'm lonely." Odelia waited. "I am lonely." "So am I. But that can't be the reason." "No." Ansel looked toward the valley. "I want you there because the place is better when you are there." Odelia's breath slowed. "Not easier." He looked at her. "Better." She blinked quickly. "And if I say no, I ride home. And if I say I want half?" Ansel stared. "Half what?" "The operation." His eyebrows rose. "You said equal partner." "I was going to." "Well, equal means equal." Ansel scratched his beard. "You drive a difficult bargain. I kept 27 men from stealing you blind. 29. Then I deserve more than half." He laughed. Odelia did too. For a moment she felt young. Not younger in body, younger in spirit. Like some forgotten part of her had stepped out into sunlight. Then Ansel reached into his coat. Odelia's heart jumped. He did not pull out a ring. He pulled out papers. She stared. "Partnership agreement." She took them. "You already wrote it?" "Yes." "What if I had said no?" "I would have ridden home feeling foolish." She opened the pages. 50% ownership, equal authority, shared profits. Her name written clearly. Odelia Saye. Not assistant, not cook, not housekeeper, not dependent. Partner. She looked at him. "You meant it." "I try not to climb down a mountain with legal papers unless I mean them." Tears came before she could stop them. Ansel frowned. "Is that bad?" "No. You're crying." "I do that sometimes. I've noticed." She laughed. Then she looked back toward the house. Her mother stood inside the doorway, Maribel beside her. For months, Odelia had imagined leaving Bellwether. In those imaginings, she usually pictured herself victorious. People begging her to stay. Neighbors apologizing in the street. Her family realizing too late how much she had done. But reality was quieter. Some people apologized. Some avoided her. Some suddenly became too friendly. Jonas Pell brought a pie one afternoon and could barely look at her. Mrs. Danner hugged her and cried. Others behaved as if nothing had happened. Odelia discovered she did not need any of it. She did not need Bellwether to decide she had value. That decision had been left in their hands too long. "I'll go," she said. Her mother stepped outside. "So soon?" Odelia looked at the woman who had loved her, depended on her, hurt her, and never fully understood how all four things could be true at once. "I've been here 34 years, her mother's eyes filled. "I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too," Maribel approached. For a moment, neither sister knew what to do. Then Maribel said, "I don't expect you to forgive everything." Odelia nodded. "Good." A tiny, sad smile passed between them. Maribel's voice trembled. "Can I write? If you tell the truth." "I will. Even ugly truth." Maribel nodded. "Especially that." Odelia hugged her. It was not a perfect ending between them. It was a beginning. Sometimes that was harder. Her father came to the doorway. "You got everything?" Odelia looked at her trunk. "No." Vernon frowned. She smiled. "The things I'm leaving are heavier." He understood. Ansel loaded the wagon. Odelia climbed onto the seat beside him. People in town heard she was leaving. Several came to watch. That would once have frightened her. She would have worried about how she looked climbing into the wagon, whether the seat bent, whether her dress pulled strangely, whether someone whispered. That morning she did not care. She wore the deep blue dress again. Her black hair moved loose beneath a clean scarf. The wagon rolled toward the road. At the edge of Bellwether, Odelia looked back. The town seemed smaller than she remembered. Her mother waved. Her father raised his hat. Maribel stood with both hands pressed to her heart. Odelia began to cry. Ansel glanced at her. "Want to stop?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes." The wagon kept moving. She wiped her cheek. Ansel waited. After a while he asked, "Sad?" "Yes." "Regret?" Odelia looked ahead. Blackthorn Mountain rose in the distance, dark and wild beneath the morning sun. "No." Ansel nodded. They traveled in silence. Near noon they stopped beside the creek. Ansel watered the horses. Odelia sat on a rock near the bank. The water moved over smooth stones. She remembered the frightened woman in the wagon shed, the woman hiding behind barns, the woman standing against walls, the woman who believed usefulness was the closest thing she would ever have to love. Ansel sat beside her. "What are you thinking?" Odelia looked at the creek. "That I spent half my life trying to become small enough for people to be comfortable." Ansel waited. "And?" She looked at him. "I'm tired of being small." His eyes softened. Odelia smiled. Figuratively. "I understood. You looked confused." "I often look confused." "That's true." He leaned closer. Odelia's heart began beating faster. She had imagined this moment too. In those imaginings, she had always become self-conscious. Would he notice her round cheeks? Would he mind the softness beneath her chin? Would he regret being close? But Ansel looked at her the same way he had looked at her behind the barn months ago, as if she was there, fully there, not a joke, not a burden, not a symbol, a woman. "Odelia." "Yes? I want to kiss you." Her breath caught. "You're asking?" "Yes." "That is surprisingly polite for a mountain man. I've been improving." "Your coffee says otherwise." He smiled. She whispered, "Yes." His hand touched her cheek. Then he kissed her. It was gentle, almost uncertain. Not the kiss of a man rescuing a lonely woman. Not the kiss of a wounded man replacing a lost wife. It was simply two people choosing the moment they were in. When they parted, Ansel rested his forehead against hers. "I'm scared," he admitted. Odelia looked into his eyes. "Of me. Of having something to lose." She understood. "So am I. What do we do with that?" Odelia looked toward the mountain. "We go anyway." By autumn, the Blackthorn operation had changed. Odelia reorganized the books. Every shipment required 2 signatures. Every worker could see his own pay record. Supply contracts were posted openly. Land papers remained in a fireproof safe, for which Odelia and Ansel each kept a key. Cal worked under supervision and slowly earned back trust. Not all of it. Maybe never all of it. That was part of telling the truth, too. You could regret something deeply and still live with damage that regret could not erase. Odelia hired 2 young women from Bellwether to help with accounts. One of them was quiet, broad-shouldered, and painfully shy. On her first day, the girl apologized for taking up too much space at the office table. Odelia looked at her. Never apologize for sitting in a chair that belongs to you. The girl blinked. Odelia smiled. She remembered someone telling her the same thing. Ansel built a second desk beside hers. Not across the room, beside it. They argued often about prices, about hiring, about whether pine should be cut from the western ridge, about his inability to file anything correctly. Sometimes Odelia walked out furious. Sometimes Ansel did. They always returned. That surprised her most. Her whole life she had believed love meant making yourself easy enough that people would not leave. Ansel taught her something different. You could disagree. You could disappoint. You could be tired. You could be afraid. And the door could still open again. One evening, the first snow began. Odelia stood on the porch, watching white flakes settle over the mill roof. Ansel came up behind her. Cold? A little. He draped a blanket around her shoulders. For a while they watched the mountain. Do you miss Bellwether? He asked. Odelia thought about it. Parts. Your family. Yes. Your house. Sometimes. The people. Odelia laughed softly. Some. Ansel nodded. Then Odelia said, I miss who I hoped they would become. He looked at her. That makes sense? Yes. Does it ever stop hurting? Ansel stared at the snow. No. Odelia sighed. Wonderful. But it changes. How? He thought. At first grief is the whole sky. Odelia listened. Then one day you notice there are clouds around it. She looked at him. That may be the strangest comforting thing anyone has ever said to me. I practice. I can tell. He kissed the side of her head. Below them, lights glowed in the worker cabins. Someone played a fiddle. Men laughed near the dining hall. Odelia listened. Once, laughter had made her want to disappear. Now she could hear it, without wondering whether it belonged to her. She rested her head against Ansel's shoulder. I need to tell you something. What? Your coffee is getting better. He pulled back. Really? No, he groaned. Odelia laughed. The sound carried across the porch and into the snowy dark. The following spring, Vernon and Maribel visited Blackthorn. Maribel stepped from the wagon, wearing a practical traveling coat instead of one of her delicate town dresses. Odelia noticed. She chose not to mention it. They walked through the mill. Maribel stared at the office. Half of this is yours? Half. And the land? Shared. The house? Odelia smiled. Shared. Maribel touched one of the ledgers. You really did it. Odelia's expression changed. I was always doing it. Maribel looked at her. You were. That evening they sat together beneath the porch lantern. Maribel said, Bellwether talks about you constantly. I'm devastated to hear it. Her sister smiled. They say you changed. Odelia looked toward the mountain. Did I? I don't think so. Maribel's voice softened. I think you stopped hiding. Odelia swallowed. That felt closer. Maribel took her hand. I've been trying too. To stop hiding? To stop needing everyone to like me. How is that going? Terribly. Odelia laughed. Maribel laughed too. Then she became serious. I told people what happened with Everett. Odelia looked at her. All of it? All of it. How did they react? Some were kind. And the others? Not. Odelia squeezed her hand. Maribel's eyes filled. I thought I would die from shame. But you didn't. No. What happened? Maribel looked toward her sister. The next morning came. Odelia nodded. Yes. The next morning always came. That was one of life's quiet mercies. No feeling lasted with the same sharpness forever. Not humiliation, not grief, not fear, not even loneliness. Years later, when people in the valley told the story of how Calder Vale nearly stole Bellwether's water, they often made it grander than it had been. They spoke of secret schemes, corrupt officials, forged deeds, a mountain operation almost destroyed from inside. They spoke of the crowded meeting hall where Everett Crane finally realized that the woman he had dismissed understood every move he had made. Some storytellers claimed Odelia shouted him down. She had not. Others claimed half the town cheered. They had not. A few claimed Ansel stood beside her with a rifle. He had not even carried one. People liked stories where courage looked loud. Odelia knew better. Sometimes courage was a large woman wearing a blue dress while her hands shook. Sometimes it was a frightened farmer standing up and admitting he had signed something he should not have signed. Sometimes it was a sister confessing that vanity had made her cruel. Sometimes it was a dishonest man telling the truth even when forgiveness was not promised. Sometimes courage was staying. Sometimes it was leaving. And sometimes it was waking one ordinary morning and deciding that the opinions which had ruled your life yesterday would not be allowed to rule it today. On the 5th anniversary of her move to Blackthorn, Odelia returned to Bellwether alone. Ansel had offered to come. She told him she needed to do it herself. The town looked much the same. The general store still leaned slightly to the east. Children still chased each other near the pump. Church bells still rang too loudly. Odelia walked down the main street. People looked at her. She noticed. She kept walking. Outside the old Saye property stood the wagon. The same wagon she had repaired the afternoon Ansel first spoke to her. The wood had faded. One wheel had been replaced. Odelia rested her hand on the side. Jonas Pell came from the barn. He stopped when he saw her. Odelia. Jonas. He looked older. More tired. I heard you were in town. News travels. It does. They stood awkwardly. Then Jonas said, I think about that day sometimes. So do I. I wish I hadn't said it. I know. He shifted. I thought being sorry would make me feel better. Odelia looked at him. Did it? No. Good. Jonas looked surprised. Odelia smiled faintly. Feeling bad isn't always useless. He nodded. I suppose not. She started toward the house. Odelia. She turned. Jonas rubbed the back of his neck. For what it's worth, you look happy. Years before, that sentence might have made her glow. Approval. Evidence. Proof that someone finally saw something good. Now she simply said, I am. Then she walked away. Her father sat beneath the cottonwood tree. His cane leaned beside him. Maribel's children played near the porch. Her mother shelled peas. For the afternoon, Odelia was home. They ate together. They remembered old stories. They argued about whether Vernon should walk more. Her mother complained that Odelia had become bossy. Odelia reminded her she had always been bossy. Maribel laughed. Nothing was perfect. That comforted Odelia. Perfect things had always frightened her. They required pretending. Real things had cracks. Scars. Bad memories. Second chances. Boundaries. Truth. Near sunset, Odelia prepared to leave. Her mother hugged her. Vernon kissed her forehead. Maribel walked her to the wagon. Will you come for Christmas? Maybe. Mother will complain if you don't. Mother complains if I do. True. They smiled. Then Maribel asked, Does leaving ever stop feeling strange? Odelia looked down the road. I don't think leaving is the strange part. What is? Realizing you're allowed to. Maribel's eyes softened. Odelia climbed into the wagon. The road toward Blackthorn stretched ahead beneath a golden evening sky. She thought of the first time she had traveled it. How frightened she had been. How certain she was that one failure would send her crawling home. She had believed Ansel had given her a chance. Years later she understood that was only partly true. He had opened a door. She had walked through it. That difference mattered. Halfway up the mountain, Odelia stopped beside the creek where Ansel had first kissed her. She climbed down. The water still moved across the same stones. She stood there for several minutes. Then she heard hoofbeats. Ansel appeared around the bend on horseback. Odelia frowned. What are you doing here? You were late. I am 15 minutes late. 17. You came looking for me after 17 minutes? Yes. She folded her arms. That is unreasonable. I know. He dismounted. You could have trusted me. I do. Then why come? Ansel walked closer. Because trusting you and wanting to see you are not the same thing. Odelia tried not to smile. She failed. You practiced that line. All afternoon. I can tell. He took her hand. They walked beside the creek. The mountain air was cool. Birds moved among the trees. Odelia looked at the man beside her. His beard carried more grey now. The scar at his temple had faded. The sorrow in his eyes remained. So did hers. Neither had been healed into some new, spotless person. Ansel still woke from dreams of Clara sometimes. Odelia still hesitated before entering crowded rooms. Some insults remained inside her longer than she wanted. Some days she still heard old laughter when she looked into a mirror. On those days, Ansel did not tell her she was beautiful until she believed him. He did not tell her the past did not matter. He simply stayed. And Odelia did the same for him. That was their love. Not rescue, not forgetting. Not one broken person fixing another. Two people choosing honesty over hiding, choosing presence over fear, choosing tomorrow, even when yesterday still hurt. At the bend in the creek, Ansel stopped. "I have something for you." Odelia looked suspicious. "If it's coffee, I'm leaving." "It isn't." He reached into his coat and handed her something wrapped in cloth. She opened it. Inside was a small brass box. Odelia stared. "My grandmother's cash box. You left it at your father's." She ran her fingers over the lid. "How did you get this?" "Vernon gave it to me last month." Odelia opened it. Inside lay several childhood drawings. Houses. Dozens of them. Tiny pencil houses with windows, chimneys, gardens, and doors. Odelia laughed softly. "I forgot these." Ansel picked up one. "This one has 6 locks. I was dramatic. You were 12. Exactly." Near the bottom was a drawing she did not remember. A house on a mountain, a river beside it. 2 figures stood on the porch. Odelia's eyes filled. Ansel looked at it. "You drew Blackthorn." "No. Looks like it. I had never seen Blackthorn. Still looks like it." Odelia smiled through tears. She folded the drawing carefully. Ansel said, "You crying again?" "Yes." "Bad?" "No." "Good." Odelia closed the box. Then she looked toward the mountain. Lights from the mill were beginning to appear between the trees. Home. The word no longer meant the place where she was born. It did not mean the place where everyone knew her childhood name. It did not even mean Ansel. Not entirely. Home had become something quieter. The place where she did not have to disappear. The life where she did not need to apologize for existing. The work that carried her name. The decisions that belonged to her. The people who could disagree with her without making her feel small. The rooms where she could laugh loudly. The chairs she sat in without wondering if someone was watching. Odelia slipped her hand into Ansel's. "Ready?" he asked. She looked once more toward the valley behind them. There had been pain there. Love too. Betrayal. Family. Fear. Good memories mixed with cruel ones. For years she had believed choosing herself meant rejecting everyone she loved. Now she knew better. She could love them and leave. Forgive some things and remember them. Wish people well without returning to the place they had assigned her. She could cry without changing her decision. She could be afraid and still move. Odelia took a deep breath. Yes. They started home. The path climbed through the pine trees as evening settled over Blackthorn. Ansel walked beside her horse instead of riding his own. Odelia told him he was being foolish. He agreed. She told him his coat needed mending. He said that sounded like the opinion of someone who planned to mend it. She informed him he could learn to sew. He claimed his hands were too large. She reminded him whose hands were larger. He had no answer. Odelia laughed. The sound drifted into the trees. No one mocked it. No one silenced it. No one took credit for it. And for the first time in her life, Odelia Sae did not wonder whether she deserved to be heard. She already knew. The mountain rose before her. The road continued. And she went forward. Not because the world had finally decided she was worthy, but because she had stopped waiting for its permission.